This is Dr. Dennis L. Waters Sr. I like using that word, Dr. Dennis L. Waters Sr. It came to me because I studied at the school that I dreamed about going to. I had a teacher that I adored, thought the world of. I had imagined going to Howard University for nearly 30 some years, if not more. I read the professor's book at least 8 times before I knew that I would be in his class. Did not even know that I would be in his class, did not even know him. Did not even know that I was practicing some principles that I'm going to share with you and have been sharing with you about how you create the life that you want. And you may be practicing these principles already. They involve visioning. They involve visualization. They involve affirmations. They are principles that people are using every day. What we talk about is how to use them in a coordinated, concise, and clear and clarified way so that you bring about specifically what you want. Because individuals may be using the principles in such a way that they bring about what they don't want, and then they complain about it. But what we want you to do is actually bring about what you want and celebrate the fact that you brought it about. I want to tell you a little bit about how I did it and how you can do it so that it works for you and bring about the life that you want to bring about. I discovered it as I read the Bible. I discovered how to actually make it happen. I think it's everywhere. I think it's in nature. I know it is. I think it's in Revelation. I think it's just everywhere. And I think the principles, I know I was practicing them now before I even knew that I was practicing them then. And so I want to share those with you. Welcome to the I Will Restore broadcast. Welcome to this podcast. Blessings to you as we talk together. I've entitled this particular presentation, What Do You Say to the God of Death? What do you say to the God of Death? The individuals say to me that there was this program that broke all records, really, when it came to programs that were on television and things like that. It was called the Game of Thrones, and there were religious individuals that did not watch the Game of Thrones. They thought, and they were probably right in their thinking about it, and saying that there were things on there that you should not see. Well, there are things on there that you likely should not see. The thing is that I did not grow up in a Puritan home, so to speak. And then I've read so much about life and I've seen so much about life that what has happened to me is that I got exposed to an individual named Carl Jung. And Carl Jung is a psychologist, or was a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and he wrote a book called Man and His Symbols. Man and His Symbols. Him and another individual actually wrote this book, and they began to understand that life is symbolic, that the things that we see, we actually take into our minds, and then we use those as symbols to and give meaning to life. And as a result of that, you can actually take various things in life. Indeed, we take all things and we give new meaning to them. And so there is both the object that you see, and then there's the meaning that you give to what you see. And the most important thing is what you do in your mind subjectively to that which you see, that which you feel, that which you taste, that which you touch. All of these types of things. It's the meaning that you make of what your life is or what you think is objective to you. Inside of you is a kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven. It is inside of you. You are a part of it and it is a part of you. The text says the kingdom of God is within you, and then it says that we are in God. In God we live and move and have our being. All of these things are really cryptic statements it, when understood in a particular kind of way, release a power within you. And as I was studying these things, I began to understand what they were actually saying to me, or how they would be able to actually help me to understand. And then over the course of time, I began to actually use them to my benefit. And so when I look at something like Game of Thrones, I may initially see something that almost is repulsive, that I say, well, I don't want to look at that. But then I consider the fact, what does it mean? What does it mean? And I become informed by the things that I read. I become informed by the things that I read as to what is being said in regard to both the writer and then also I as a viewer. Because there's a statement that says nothing has meaning except the meaning you give to it. Nothing has meaning except the meaning that you give to it. And so I want to give meaning to things in such a way that they empower me. And I'm not just talking to me to talk to me, but I am talking to me to talk to me. But I also want to talk to you in such a way that it gives power to you. And so to actually talk with you in regard to what you do, how you work, and what works for you. And I say to individuals that I studied the Bible tremendously. I've taken courses when it comes to Greek and Hebrew and all of those kinds of things, the languages, and that was one of the things that attracted me to my professor, whose name was Dr. Kane Hope Felder, when I went to Howard University School of Divinity and studied with him. He was a scholar when it came to languages, and I was fascinated when he would stand up and he would speak languages, like he would speak Hebrew, he would speak Greek, he would speak Spanish, he would speak French. He would just do all of those kinds of things, and I just admired him for what he did. And he had written a book called Troubling Biblical Waters. And when I read that book, I actually read it maybe 7 or 8 times before I actually met him. But what I did not understand is, at that particular time, which was the year 2005, 2004, 2005, I actually went to Howard University. I had already studied at other schools and those kind of things. And what I did not know, because it had not come out yet, was that there was what was called the law of attraction. So I had not studied that. But the law of attraction is similar to what my mama and daddy used to say. They said birds of a feather flock together. And people who think alike like to be together and are drawn toward each other. Well, after studying Dr. Felder's book, one day I was at Howard University. I was in the school, and guess whose class I was in? It was Dr. Kane Hope Felder. Dr. Felder, as I probably said already, Dr. Felder transitioned in October of 2019. So he transitioned in 2019. So I want to honor him each time I speak his name and everything like that. And so I was in this class, studied, and again, I was just blessed by his presence. I want to honor him in basically everything that I do, because that's how I came to call myself Dr. Dennis L. Sr. As a result of being in his class. There are other things that have taken place as far as my life to understand the very essence of what is called the law of attraction. And the law of attraction is a way by which you begin to rescript, give new meaning to old things in a person's life. You begin to see things different. You begin to feel things different. You begin to act differently. All of these kinds of things. And it gives a scientific approach to the way that life is. And it wasn't just simply from what I saw in the video or the DVD in the Law of Attraction, the books that I've read and everything like that. It was also, I was at the time, and working at the time, I had become a Seventh-day Adventist minister, and I have nothing but gratitude and thanks to God, because I recognize I learned to read and to study at a particular level when I studied as a Seventh-day Adventist minister. And I read, people again have all kinds of thoughts about this whole thing of who the individual named Ellen G. White is, but I read her material, and I recognize, and here's something I want you to understand in regard to anything that you might do, any place where you are. All things, my parents again would say things like, eat the meat, throw the bones away. Eat the meat, throw the bones away. Or take the good, leave the bad. And all of us have parts of us that we might consider good. We have strengths, and then we have weaknesses. As a matter of fact, as industrial organization psychologists, we go through a process where we do what we call a SWOT analysis with individuals, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so we look at their strengths, but that's whether it's an individual or whether it's an organization. There are strengths, but there are also weaknesses. Strengths, weaknesses, good, bad. And that is important to understand. So there's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so the good, the bad. Eat the meat, throw the bones away. And so that's what I do when I come to something and someone, whether it's historical, whether it's an individual, whether it's an organization, and also what I'm speaking now is something that you can use. And so when it comes to this individual whose name is Ellen White, I've read a number of her books, and there's tremendous good that can be found. I'm going to share with you an item. It's very much in line with what we call the law of attraction, which I know came out in 2009. That was the year that I was exposed to it. Others were aware of it perhaps long before then. But when I became aware of it, I had read a book that was called The Ministry of Healing, and there's a chapter in there. It is called Mind Cure. Notice that I said it is called Mind Cure. It is called Mind Cure. And you can read a whole lot of things, and you could never really understand what they're saying until you understand what they are saying. And the way that you come about understanding what they're saying is you open yourself up to spirit. You say to God, I'm ready, I'm open, I'm available, I'm willing. And you speak to spirit in that way. And God, I used to think that I knew a lot about God. I knew a lot about God, but I discovered that I knew a thimbleful and God was an ocean. And so I had a little small thimbleful, and I thought that I had everything. As a matter of fact, I went into one place at one particular point in time where the individual told me that he basically told me I did not know poop. And I thought, with all my degrees and everything like that, I said, boy, I really know something. But he said, you don't know poop. And he didn't use that word. He used a different word that I won't use this particular time. But he said, you don't know poop. And I thought for a moment, and, he was basically saying, you're either going to stay here and learn what you don't know, or you can leave with what you do know. Well, I chose to stay and learn. And I discovered that comparatively at that time that I knew very little. And I'm still learning. I'm still being transformed by what I'm learning. I'm still being transformed. And this is what happened in regard to this. And I want you to listen to what this particular item says. You may stop it actually and play this over and over again if you haven't already gotten it, heard it, whatever it may be. But this is out of the chapter called Mind Cure in the book Ministry of Healing. And here's the item that is so powerful. There's this discussion that's going on in regard to this particular chapter. It says, often your mind may be clouded because of pain. So what it's talking about is an individual who is in a great deal of pain. Then she says, then do not try to think. You know that Jesus loves you. He understands your weakness. You may do his will by simply resting in his arms. And here's the statement. It is a law of nature that our thoughts and feelings are encouraged and strengthened as we give them utterance. While words express thoughts. Now get what has been said here. There are two things that are vital in regard to what I'm talking about here. It is a law, the law of attraction, remember that? It is a law. She's writing in the 1800s. In the 1800s, she said it is a law of nature that our thoughts and feelings are encouraged and strengthened as we give them utterance. In other words, the more we express our thoughts, the more we express our feelings, the stronger they become. The more we feel it, the more we think it, and the more we are encouraged to think it and feel it. So we begin to make something more real the more we talk about it. So if we are in pain and we keep on saying we're in pain, we are in more pain. If we're feeling bad and we say we're feeling bad, we feel worse. That's what she's saying. That's what she is saying. Now, she does a turnaround. So in this particular item, she's saying we think it, we feel it, and then we say it. Then she does a turnaround, which is this. While words express thoughts, it is also true that thoughts follow words. In other words, she says, take control of your words. Take control of your words. Don't let your physical body control your words. Don't let your physical circumstances control your words. Don't let your physical circumstances with your body, with your life, or anything, don't let that control your words. Because your words will be followed by your actions. And your actions will bring about your life. And so she says, don't let your physical environment, your physical circumstance, your physical body control your words. Why? Because if you do, then your words will start the cycle all back over again and strengthen, embolden, empower that very thing. It will make your body feel worse the more you talk about it. And so she says, begin to control your words. Your words will then influence your thinking. Your thinking will then begin to recontrol your words, reconfigure your very words, and your words will make your body feel better. Your thinking, your words will program your mind, and your mind will then program your body. And the more you do that, the better you will feel. Now, that's basically what is being talked about. The biblical statement says, let the weak say that I'm strong. Let the weak say that I'm strong. And it is a reconfiguring of the very body itself as a result of that. But when you go to the aspect of taking that principle, that my words, now how do you get control of your words? Well, this is where the law of attraction comes into play. This is what individuals are taught to do, is that they are taught to actually write out affirmations, as we call them. They're taught to write them out. Well, how do you know how to write out affirmations? Well, the affirmations come from the aspect that you move to the point where you can look in the Bible and you can find those statements where there are what they call I am statements. Over and over again, there are statements of I am that are in the Bible. Jesus the Christ would say, I am light. I am truth. And he would say various things. I am my Father's son. I and my Father are one. All of these things that he would say. And over again, he would say those things. And those are the kinds of things. And then as you begin to understand exactly how you construct the idea of I am, you redefine yourself. You construct a new identity. Let the weak say that I am strong. That's an exact opposite of whatever the situation is in one's life. Exact opposite. That's a clue as to what you do to bring about your situation. Let the weak say that I am strong. It's a very powerful idea. The thing that has happened to me is that as a result of beginning there in really beforehand, I mean just years before, is that I understood the power of words. I understood the power of words. And I have been reading of late the writings of an individual named Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I've read the material of an individual named Neville-Joseph over the course of years, and others. And there is, when I was initially being exposed to this material, there were so many individuals. They are just like you meet people, new people, and things of that nature, and people who are walking, talking just like you and I are normally walking and talking. Well, there are individuals all throughout the world, really, in time, space, whatever you want to call it, in regard to this. And They have been here. They are walking around here. They're talking here and everything. And I have been meeting them, reading their material. And of late, I've had calls to go back and read their material again. I want to share with you a few of those instances and a little of the material that I've been exposed to, because it has had a major influence and it has just blessed me tremendously. In one instance, the experience happened to me and my wife at the time. She was told that she was going to be passing in like 3 years. The doctors told her she had 3 years to live at that time. 3 years to live. And it was the first time that we had heard that. We were young. We had 3 babies, 3 young children, and we were being told that she was going to pass. I was a young minister, and I knew that, 1, I loved her, 2, that we had young babies, and that they needed their mother as much as I did. And at the moment, I made a covenant with God that per God allowing her to remain alive, that my life would belong to God forever, would be God's forever. I had already made such a covenant with God, the same kind of covenant that Solomon made with God, same kind of covenant that Abraham and others made with God. And I'm in it. And I just renewed that covenant with God. And God kept her, held on to her. And then years later, so many years later, same kind of experience happened again, where she was also at the point where it seemed that she was going to die again. And I made the same covenant with God. I belong to you. Hold her, keep her alive. The same kind of thing occurred. Again, she was saved. Recently, I've read in the writings of Dr. Joseph Murphy, where he talks about individuals who are able intuitively, because they are intuitive, they can tap into the feelings and ideas that are within individuals. You know that there are people who may come and say, I'm going to prophesy over you. And what Dr. Murphy was saying was that these individuals say something, and many times, whether it's people in church and individuals in the community or doctors or whatever, they prescribe something and say something, and it almost seems like it's inevitable. You remember in the Matrix movie, it says that's the sound of inevitability, and it seems inevitable. And when I mentioned this aspect about the Game of Thrones, there's this one place in the movie where the individual, her name is Arya, I believe, Arya. She is meeting a person named, I believe her name was Melisandre, and she's meeting her, and the question is, what do you say to the god of death? And Arya says, not today. Not today. This is a similar idea in principle. Not today. Not today. Mine is more than I'm not ready. Mine is more than I'm just going to fight. Mine is a covenant with spirit. I've done this in regard to when a doctor has said to me that I'm sick. A few years ago, dealing with whether it was a level of high blood pressure, what they call A1C at a particular level. And there's a whole aspect about different prognosis that have been made in regard to PSA levels, all of these kinds of things, because I've said to my doctors that the first thing that I do when there's a prognosis that's made in regard to myself, that I do a few things. One is I immediately pray. The statement says, whose report are you going to believe? Well, I'm going to talk to Spirit. I'm going to talk to God. I'm going to talk to the Christ. I'm going to have a conversation about this to make sure that I've got divine guidance. The other day, a few days ago, there was this great decision that individuals of importance were required to make. And one of those individuals made it clear that I am an individual who places my faith right at the center of everything that I do. Everything that I do. I'm one of those individuals as well. I pray about whatever decisions I'm making in life because it has served me well. It has served me well. And I encourage each individual to do the same thing. Do the very same thing. And as far as my wife's wife, it has served her well. She's still alive to this day, and we are thankful. We are thankful. Thankful because technology has caught up. All kinds of things have taken place. I am ever grateful. I've seen my children protected and actually thinking that there was a possibility of death, but not today. Not today. I've seen individuals who were expected to die, and they got up out of their beds, lived a number of months beyond, in some decades, scores of years beyond their time when the doctor said they were going to die. I know these things have taken place. Not today. Not today. And lived healthy and strong and powerful lives. Not today. Not today. It is more than happenstance. This is not some magical item that is being talked about. This is why I like what other individuals are doing, because when it's said it is a law of nature, that a law is like 1 + 1 = 2. Whatever you may have it, it may be 1,000 + 1,000 = 2,000. Well, it's still 2. 1 million + 1 million = 2 million is still 2, or 1 trillion + 2 trillion = 2 trillion. It's still 2. You just got a number of zeros behind it. And so that's what we're talking about there. And that's what we look at when it comes to looking at the whole thing of training. It has to do with a scientific approach. It says there's a formula here that says step by step by step by step. There's a cumulative effect that is involved here. It is a law of nature. And that's why I look and I listen, because I know that I did math first. And the first thing I did was I learned how to add, and then I learned how to subtract, and then I learned how to multiply, and then I learned how to divide. And then when I went, I did calculus. And before I did calculus, I did algebra, and then geometry, and then I did trigonometry, and then I did calculus, and then I did statistics. All of those things had their process and everything in regard to that. And it's the same way. Some people say, well, I want to get from A to Z. Well, it'd be important if you go through the alphabet first. That would be important to do, to go through the alphabet first. And this is the same way. Spiritual things are spiritually discerned, but they follow in a natural way, the same way that things happen in the physical world. There's a natural world, and then there's a spiritual world as well. And that's what we're talking about here. Not today. Not today. Aria had been through her training, and she knew what she was doing. She knew how she was dealing with it, and she had guides and individuals who would come and actually talk with her. It's a story. That's the meaning that I give to it. Some people see other things taking place. When I look at this book, The Ministry of Healing, people have all kinds of things to say about the individual who wrote it, but I'm looking beyond that. I'm looking for something else. I'm looking at that place, another place, still another place. Let's hear some music here. This is called, again, Inspiring Motivational Emotional Trailer. It's about 2 minutes of good music. Listen very carefully to it. Powerful, powerful, powerful music in regard to that. Just powerful. And I am looking at this particular item in regard to how do you arrive at the point that you actually are able to utilize this material. How do you utilize it? How do you arrive at the understanding of how to make this work for oneself? How do you make it work for oneself? The process that I go about doing this, and again, it is not something that I just simply say there's only one way. I think that every school, every particular, let's say every particular school, and leave it there, has benefits. Again, you eat the meat, you throw the bones away. You eat the meat and you throw the bones away. And so when you're looking at what individuals have written, what they teach, there is probably something good that is beneficial to you in regard to pretty much any place that you can look as far as life and as far as what you might be exposed to. There's something that you can look at and you can find and that you can benefit from. I've benefited from the writings of a tremendous number of individuals, just a tremendous number of individuals. One such individual is the person known as Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I say to individuals that Emerson writes in his essays, one of his essays is called History. One of the essays is called History. And in that, he says there is a mind, one mind common to all people, one mind that's common to all people. And he mentions that. And then he says that the mind that's common to all people, that each person can become an inlet to that mind. In other words, the person can become an inlet. That mind that's common to all people has the ability to allow what people have thought and felt and experienced all down through history. They have the opportunity to arrive at that point where they are able to think what others have thought. They are able to feel what others have felt. And they're able to really bring about and do what others have done, those individuals. So it makes it possible so that we do not have to bow down really to others and think, wow, they were so great, they were so powerful, they were so wonderful. What about us? And that is a marvelous, marvelous experience. I want to share with you. It is from an individual, and he talks about this aspect of accepting my own divine well-being. My own divine well-being. He says, within myself is that which is perfect, that which is complete, that which is divine. Remember, we're talking about affirmations. That which was never born and cannot die. That which lives, which is God. The eternal reality. Within myself is peace, poise, power, wholeness, and happiness. All the power that there is, and all the presence that there is, and all the life that there is God, the living Spirit Almighty. And this divine and living Spirit is within me. It is wholeness. It is never weary. It is never tired. It is life. It is complete peace. It is never afraid. It is never confused. It is always poised and peaceful. It is always in a state of perfect equilibrium. This is the truth about myself. There's no other self. I found that statement, that's part of the statement that is in this particular item. And when I read that in conjunction with what Emerson says and what others say, and then meditate on these statements, they become just parts of myself. Meditating on that, just sitting, and regardless of what the circumstances are around me, the reason why I mention them to you is because that it's an invitation, really, that regardless of what your circumstances may be, whether they're sickness, whether they are lack and limitation, whatever it may be, whether you are in some kind of situation, whether it's what you might consider bondage or whatever it may be, there is a possibility that you can, by virtue of dreaming or visualization or visioning, you can create for yourself an entirely different world that you can live in. And if you're able to only do that for a few seconds or for a minute or for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes or for 20 minutes, whatever it may be, do it for whatever length of time you're able to do that. I've used music, meditation music, and affirmations, and then, as I said, sacred study of books and ideas and concepts, all of these things to move me through a process whereby my mind changed, my words changed, my reality changed, and not just mine, M-I-N-E, but individuals. I've mentioned that I've seen young people, and I see young people when I go to restaurants and I'm sitting down, and I may see a young person who's like 3 or 4 years old or 5 years old, and they are there reading. And when I listen to them read, I am amazed. They're reading at a very young age. And I ask their parents if they're reading, because I see them holding the book like they're in a position like they're reading. And I ask them if they're reading. I ask their parents or grandparents if they're able to read. And I ask them to read to me. And when they do, I reward them by giving them a gift. It could be $2, it could be $5, it could be $10, whatever it may be, in order to say again that what they've done is positive, and to cement it in their mind for that moment. Because we give scholarships to individuals when they do something academically, or when they do something as far as sports, all of those. Well, I want to reward those young people again, and in that moment to seal it in their mind that they've done something that's beneficial, that is beneficial to them and will indeed be beneficial as they go forward in life. They are doing something academically. They're growing their own mind. And as I said before, it used to be, there was a time when they said you only had so much intelligence, but there's neuroplasticity now, and it's clear that the mind has the ability to grow. It will get stronger and stronger and stronger. And as a result of that, we'll see what the next generation does, what the next 100 years brings in regard to individuals, their ability to learn, to grow. Remember, it says that anything that anyone has done before, and we have seen the pyramids. We used to have idea that Africa itself was this dark continent, meaning that it was filled with people who were illiterate. We know that is a lie today. We know that it is a lie. We know that Timbuktu had universities, not one, many of them. We know that. We're clear. The people of Ethiopia are very proud people. I meet the people, talk with the people. They are thrilled that they have never been conquered. Thrilled, never been conquered. Mussolini came and could not conquer them. And so we look at these things and celebrate these things and have in mind people, the Jewish people of the world, have said, never again are we going to allow ourselves to be hurt and harmed the way we were during World War II. Never again. And all people, we are According to the Constitution and the Declaration of the United States of America, we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Regardless of what happens in the government, regardless of that, I'm convinced that our greatest power is this power that I'm talking about right now. This power, the individual's power to change his or her life, to use the tools. There's a book that is called As a Man Thinketh. And the book declares that as we think, we're sowing into our lives, and surely we will reap the harvest of that life. We will reap the harvest of that life. And so you want to go through, I would encourage you to go through whatever your life may be. If it's already perfect, exactly as you want it to be, wonderful. But if it is something that you have in mind that you want to be, do, or have that's different from what it is today, then there are tools and techniques that you are able to use to bring about your being more authentic, more loving, more kind, more generous, more powerful, able to bring about change on a wider sphere. And that's one of the things that, again, that I am seeking to do in a massive way. It's to benefit people on a wider scale than anything I've ever done before. I've benefited people, no question about it. No question about it. This is transforming me. Individuals, I recognize and I, to a degree, apologize. This whole aspect of when it comes to recording and being on the podcast and being on I Will Restore, Blog Talk Radio, all of those kinds of things, I recognize the inconsistencies. The thing is that I have somewhere between 5 to 7 websites that I also run and am taking care of and everything. And I'm seeking to do that, as well as running the whole aspect of being in contact with various individuals who are in contact with us via emails and via telephone calls and all of those kinds of things. So seeking to make sure that we keep in contact with the individuals who want to be in contact with us. And then the telephone calls and WhatsApp and all of this kind of conversation in regard to that, making sure that we're available to those individuals as well as corporations and companies as well. I say to individuals that I have studied both theology, and then I have a Master's of Science in Telecommunications Management, and then also studied executive coaching, both in regards to John Maxwell's training group and certified coach through that program, do those kinds of things as well. And then also through Walden University, also going through a training program, industrial organizational psychology, when it comes to that. So I'm hungry for transformation, not just learning. I've been transformed. I know Dennis Waters. I know him as a child. I know where he was. I know how he grew up. I know the things that he did. I know this individual. I know what Spirit has done in me, through me, as me. I know this person. I know him. And I know what Spirit has done in me. And I am so, so thankful in regard to this. I am so, so thankful. And not only do I know the past, I see the future. I see that all things are possible. I've been to Egypt. I've been to Israel. I've been to Kenya. I've been to various parts of the United States of America. I've been a few places in my life. I've been to Europe. I've traveled. And what's amazing for me, when I initially saw the pyramids, it was just monumental. I've been to Rome. I cannot tell you how wonderful it is. When I first went to California, it was just marvelous. Going to Florida, the Bahamas, all of this, just glorious, a glorious experience. I'm just thankful for what Spirit has done in me, through me, as me, and touching the lives of people. It is just marvelous. Let me play this music one more time, and then we'll come back again. want to just share with you, in the hope that you will be benefited by what is written by Dr. Murphy. And people may wonder, well, why do you just read this? Because the reason that individuals such as myself share out of the writings of others is that, one, a person who is living can be seen as just saying something and it has no merit. There are so many people who are speaking and people don't trust them. But this book is called This Is It. You can likely buy it on Amazon or any other place, and you can just purchase the book. You don't have to listen to anything that I say in regard to this, because people are skeptical, and they have a right to be. They have a right to be. They have a right to be. There are a lot of people who are saying all kinds of things. But this particular item can be tried without you really working with anybody else. I encourage you to send us an email at info@iwillrestore.com. But that's not something that's mandatory. You'll benefit from this whether I ever hear from you or not. This stuff works. This stuff works. It has changed my life. There's no question about it for me. And if you purchase the item on Amazon, then you spend $5, $10. You can probably find it online for free. Just get a PDF and that's the end of it. Print it out, that's the end of it. No risk to you. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars for my education, hundreds of thousands. And so, is it worth it to me? Absolutely. Absolutely. I know the mess that my life contained. I know that. I know what I've had to deal with. So I'm going to do out of this book called This Is It by Dr. Joseph Murphy. If you like, you can go to the website iwillrestore.com, and also we have a website called svptli.com. We're getting that website up. We have a school. SVPTLI stands for Spirit, Victory, Praise, Transformational Leadership Institute, and we call it Transformational Leadership Institute / University. And so we train and teach individuals who want to go to another level in their lives. That's what we're working with. And as I said, we've been doing this for years with individuals, and they've been growing with me as I've been growing. And so I thank God for that. I thank God for that. Not my first rodeo, so to speak, or horse race, if you will, or first day. I've been doing this for a bit. I've seen miracles that have occurred. Just miracles that have occurred. I am thankful to who God is in my life. So let me just do some reading. Let me stop the music here, except for the music that's in the background. Let me just work with this. This is chapter 11, and it says, Oneness with God. That's the title. I am the Lord, and there's none else. There's no God beside me, from Isaiah 45, verse 5. You, the reader, are the one and only being there is. When you say I am, that means a sum total of all the personalities in the world. All other conceptions are projections in the space of the one being, yourself. In the Bible, which is a textbook on psychology, metaphysics, and man's moods and feelings, the I am is constantly referred to as I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. John 11:25. I am that I am. Exodus 3:14. These and similar sayings shine forth in all their true brilliance when once we see that Jesus the Christ was not speaking of himself personally, but of the principle of being inherent in all humankind. When true students fail to see, what true students fail to see is that there's only one person for the same reason that there's only one God. And man, God and man are one. I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. John 14:11. You cannot divide the one. Infinity cannot be divided or multiplied. The seeming divisions are the illusions of separation. We must give recognition to that innermost self which is pure spirit and which is not subject to any condition whatsoever. We feel that we are conditioned by time and space, but these conditions have no place in essential being. The true recognition of the I am is the acknowledgement of the self within you, capital S-E-L-F. Now, get what he is saying here. The true recognition of the I am is the acknowledgement of the self within you. And says, we feel that we are conditioned by time and space, but these conditions have no place in essential being. And he is saying being and self, and they both are spelled with capital letters. Being and self, God, all are spelled with capital letters to say again that they are references to God, even when they are references to you, even when they are references to me. It says, I am is the acknowledgement of the self within you. God the Father, eternally subsisting in his own being, sends forth all forms of his will. Likewise, all forms return to the formless one according to an immutable law. You, the human, can comprehend the infinite self within you by a limitless expansion of your conception of God. You thus return to the universal being as a son or daughter coming home to his or her father. The more we study the Bible, the more we realize that by the art of substitution, we are brought in contact with the divine. By the art of substitution, by the art of meditation, by going inward, we become greater in our knowledge and comprehension of the mysteries contained therein. The road inward is the road to greatness, the royal road of the ancients, and for all people who desire to become united with the supreme cause, C-A-U-S-E, the root and substance of all. Rebirth means to ascend inwardly from the lesser to the greater by an inner realization, or by the lifting up of consciousness from one step to another. Listen to this, please. The consciousness being lifted up by the contemplation dwells on the fact that I am now the being I long to be. I am now the being that I long to be. I am now the being that I long to be. Remember that statement says, it is done unto you as you believe. I am now the being that I long to be. Remember when I said earlier that an individual, by virtue of saying not what they feel, but what they think, saying, they can influence their thinking. They begin to say, I am now the being I long to be. And to make it real, I must feel it. So you say it, then you feel it. You say it until you feel it. The realization is that an inner awareness of the new state of consciousness or rebirth. So this inner awareness, the more you say it, the more you begin to feel it. And that feeling brings this inner awareness. That's the rebirth. This is not a single note. There's not a single note that was ever played that any person cannot play. Remember I was saying that earlier. Anything that has ever been felt by any holy person, any person can feel. There are no facts or secrets hidden in the dim past that any person cannot bring to light. You are the only being there is. You have a memory of all that is past. Consequently, all tones, moods, vibrations, knowledge, and wisdom are within you. There is no language that was ever spoken that you cannot speak. There's no voice that you cannot reproduce, because all is within you. You have always lived. Before Abraham was, I am, John 8:58. When all things cease to be, I am. You, man, woman, wrote the Bible. You have forgotten it, but if you meditate on its passages, so the subjective self within you will reveal to your conscious mind what you meant when you wrote it thousands of years ago. Time is an illusion. Remember, Einstein says E equals mc squared. E equals mass times the speed of light squared. Time is an illusion. God is eternal now. Thousands of years are as an instant. Eons are as a day. Therefore, shed now the belief in time and the idea that we have to come back again and again to this earth plane. One time as John, another visit as Mary, in order to gain more experience, to perfect ourselves and to become as Jesus the Christ. He says, get rid of that idea. We are sometimes told that it is almost impossible for us to become as Jesus or Moses or Elijah in one lifetime. It takes several lifetimes, we are told. Moreover, many say that we have some karma to work out in this life. In other words, we must expiate for the sins and crimes committed in past lives before we can be purified. Some state that it is almost impossible to change certain physical conditions in this life, particularly if one happened to be born with a congenital disease or deformity. This teaching is false and a contradiction of everything the Bible teaches. All of this is amazing. You read it, and again, that's why when we look at it, we say to others that this is something that's written, I'm just reading it. If you get the book, you can read it yourself. It's an amazing statement. But in the Bible, it says, I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, said the Lord. Jeremiah 30, verse 17. Then it says, who healed all thy diseases, who satisfied thy mouth with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagle. Psalms 103, verse 3 and 5. I will ransom them from the power of the grave. I will redeem them from death. Hosea 13, 14. That's what is written in the Bible. So either there is someone who meant this, or and so what is being talked about here is this idea of the possibilities. And it's asking that each of us move to the point where we contemplate what are the possibilities. We meditate on what are the possibilities. Let the weak say, I am strong. Let the weak say, I am strong. Let those who have not say, I have. And not just say it once, but say it until one believes it. There's another chapter on forgiveness that is also powerful. I'll come back to that at a later time. This is enough for today, enough for this day, enough for this setting with you. Let me play the day of inspiration, because my hope is that you have been inspired and you are benefited from what has been shared with you. Consider this not a time where you're just listening to something and it has no meaning, no value, or anything like that, but consider this as training. If you're serious about it, you want real change in your life, not just talk in your life, then I encourage you to invest in you. Believe me, as I said, I'm investing in me. I encourage you to invest in you. There is transformative learning theory that talks about how that individuals working together can actually do more, learn more, grow more. It's vital to have a community that's working together. It's absolutely vital. And my hope is that some way along the line, that as you listen to this, because I know that there are individuals who are listening, that you will share it with others, that you will actually invite them to consider this material that you are being exposed to. You can find somebody who is hurting in the world. There's no question about it. There are people who are hurting. They are looking for answers. They are crying about the political situation in the world, wherever it may be. I listen to, I look at television, listen to situations. There are some hurting people in the world, and they are looking for solutions. And they are finding that when it does not go the way that they want it to go, they are hurt. There are some people who are just vindictive because they've been hurt by what has happened in life, and it didn't go the way they thought it was. And even when it did, they're still hurt, and they're angry, and they want to get back at other people. I don't subscribe to that particular way of doing anything. Indeed, I say forgive everybody. Forgive everybody. And we'll talk about forgiveness when we come back the next time as well. I just believe there's another way. War plus war equals death plus death. That's just more death. It's more death. You know, you fight fire with fire, get burned. Everybody gets burned. And so I just think there's a better way to do life. I just am convinced about that. And so I encourage you again, there's just a different way, and this is what I found. Otherwise, I would have hurt individuals and it would have been of no benefit to me and no benefit to them either. And so this is a better path for me, at least I believe so. I'm just beyond convicted about that. Here's Day of Inspiration. I invite you again to send us an email at info@iwillrestore.com. Share it with someone, talk it over with someone, see if it's something that will benefit. Use all of these in regard to the items that we have shared, and see if they can, if it is something that as you listen to it and everything, as you practice these particular principles, ideas, then see if they work and let me know. All right, take care. Bye-bye. Inspired. Be blessed. Take care.